Welcome back to With the First Pick. We are back from the Senior Bowl down there in Mobile, Alabama, where some of the guys are making their case to be back in that first-round conversation. So what better time for an updated mock draft than right now? I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Rand Carthon. And Rand, there are 80 days, 80, to the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, PA. All right, so look, the college all-star games are done, and I feel like we have a little more clarity on some of these players as we head into the NFL Combine, which is only a few weeks away somehow today. However, we're going to look at my latest mock draft, which you can find on CBSSports.com. And this will be your chance, Mr. Carthon, to pick apart my decisions. And look, if you're watching us on YouTube, and I know I don't have to tell you guys this, but rub your hands together and feel free to do the same. If you take a player, or if I take a player that you're not crazy about, let me know. And if that's a position of need or not, let me know that too, because we always appreciate hearing from you guys. All right, Rand, you ready to get into this thing?
Let's do it.
Okay. No surprises here. Producer Sharon at the top, the first overall pick, the Las Vegas Raiders, who appear set to hire their coach after the Super Bowl here. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana. Is there a more certain thing in this draft class than this pick? Because we don't have to spend a lot of time on it.
No, and I think it becomes even more evident with the news coming out that they're hiring Clint Kubiak to be their head coach, offensive-minded guy who's absolutely maximized Sam Darnold and has them playing in the Super Bowl. And so I think Fernando going number one is a foregone conclusion. And yeah, we can just keep it moving at this point.
All right, I got a question for you and for Raiders fans on the old YouTube machine here. What would it take, if anything, if you're a Raiders fan and if you're a GM Rand trying to call up, for the Raiders to come off this pick? And we can include, you're not going to trade Jordan Love for the first overall pick, but something within reason. Is there any phone call that you're answering if you're Raiders GM John Spytek?
Yeah, if there's a nice package where you're getting a player and a hefty package of picks, you got to consider it. But we know, and we talk about it all the time. We talk about it on the different shows with Pete Prisco. The number one thing you have to have in this league is a quarterback and a head coach. You have to have those two things. You have all the other players in the world, but if you don't have the right head coach and the right quarterback, you're going to be right back here picking one the next year or the years following, looking for that position again.
Yep, no, I agree with that, but I had to put it out there. And Raiders fans, let me know if there's anything you would entertain, player and or draft picks wise, to have you come off that first overall pick. I think you just turn the card in now, have it sit on Rodgers' desk until the draft happens in 80 days, and then you prepare for the rest of the draft. Not overthink this thing. All right, next up, this is going to get interesting here. The Jets have 2 picks at 2 and 16. I was talking to our buddy Lee J. Doozable earlier today. He's not sure Arvell Reese. He has to be an edge rusher. You're not taking off-ball linebacker at number 2. That feels a little rich. But Arvell Reese is special, and the versatility is also special. Is 2 too high for Arvell, or are you going to look somewhere else if you're a Jets fan?
No, if this is a best player available scenario, we go back, Ryan, and we've talked about him since week 1 of the college football season. If you're looking at him from the context of Michael Parsons and what's the young man that just came out last year, Abdul Carter. If you're looking at him from the context of Abdul Carter and Michael Parsons, you would say Arvell is the better off-ball linebacker of the 3, but you would probably at this point as an edge rusher maybe have him at number 3 of the list coming out. I think the other 2, albeit they've had more of an opportunity to do it, they're just better pass rushers, pure pass rushers at this point. But this is a best player available spot for the New York Jets. And man, they got screwed with all these quarterbacks going back to school. And so now you're sitting there at 2, and why not take the best player available?
Yeah, and Arvell's just scratching the surface as well. Abdul was a top 5 pick. Micah should have been. He didn't play his last year. And I think Arvell, like you said, is going to be in that conversation. All right, I'm going to give you picks 3 through 6 here, and then we can highlight some of the names that you want to highlight before we go to break here. So number 3, I had the Arizona Cardinals taking CeCe Malinois, the right tackle there. At 4, it's a run on Hurricanes. Ruben Bain Jr. going to the Cards. At 5, Carnell Tate, Ohio State wide receiver, to the Giants. And then at number 6, Spencer Fano, right tackle, who played left tackle previously for the Utes, going to the Cleveland Browns. I'll ask you about Ruben Bain Jr. to the Titans. Is this too high for a guy who doesn't look the part of Myles Garrett getting off the bus as edge rusher, but he has had some truly special tape last season for the U?
Yeah, no, I mean with the hiring of Robert Saleh as the as a head coach who will be calling the defense, Ruben Bain, although he doesn't have the length that you look for, his style of play, the relentless motor. One of Robert Saleh's mantras is AGNB, all gas, no brakes, and that's how Ruben Bain plays. Ruben Bain has legitimate power. He's a good speed to power rusher. He's developed that dip and bend move off the edge, which we saw a lot in the college playoff. And so he's a good fit for that system, what they're going to want to do, that wide nine, go and get it type of defense. So talking about him, I think he is a really good fit for what the Titans will be doing moving forward.
All right, let's go to pick number 5. I want to get your thoughts on Carnell Tate. Too early for a wide receiver on a team that desperately needs wide receivers. Have a new coach in John Harbaugh, then have a new offensive system there with Jackson Dart. I don't think you can have enough weapons. I don't think this is too high for a playmaker opposite Malik Neighbors when he comes back from the injury. What do you think about Carnell here at number 5 to the Giants?
I mean, I get it. My question is just in terms of him being, I think he's a legitimate number 2 wide receiver. He will be a productive player. You see his numbers there on the season, 838 yards, 17 yards a catch. I think he'll be a really nice complement to Malik Neighbors when Malik is healthy. My only question with him there at 5 is when you're picking a receiver at number 5 or any player at number 5, will his production match the draft status and have you in a way that you're comfortable, right? And so typically at the top 5 spot, you want to pick the most surefire thing that you're going to get. And then we'll get more of a clear answer as to where they're going to go with this pick once free agency sets in and how they address the offensive line up front, because they have to do that to protect Jackson Dart more.
And that's the thing. Offensive line was certainly consideration here. But Giants fans are so triggered when you take offensive line in the top 10 because they've had some misses recently, not from lack of trying from Joe Shane, but obviously Evan Neal didn't work out. His contract's about to expire. So I understand their hesitation there. Carnell Tate's not going to be number 1 because Malik Neighbors is going to be number 1. So I get that. But if he comes in and gives you, I don't know, 65% of what you got from Malik when he was healthy, that's cooking with gas with Jackson Dart. And just quickly before we take a break here, the Browns go with Spencer Fano, right tackle, who's a scheme fit for sure. You okay going with offensive line here at number 6 for a team that obviously maybe has some questions at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, because with new head coach Todd Monken and his offensive system, like you're going to have to be able to protect whomever they have at quarterback this season, but having a big man that can block in the run game, that can give you pass protection as well, is something they're going to need. So I don't have a problem with it at all.
Okay, and they have another first-round pick by way of the Jaguars and the Travis Hunter trade. We'll talk about that later in the show. All right, let's take a quick break here when we come back. The Commanders are on the clock, and a guy we talked about in the fall making a resurgence. We'll talk about who that is right after this break. Welcome back with the first pick. Going through my latest post-Senior Bowl mock draft. Rand shaking his head at producer Sharon, not at me, although that may change shortly. And Rand, as I've been accused by you and numerous other people of falling in love with these players, got me a new crush. TJ Parker, spoke with him last week at the Senior Bowl, and I asked him straight up, very politely, what happened with the production from 25 to 24. His answer was great. He goes, I was just doing my job and let other dudes make plays. I was like, okay. And then he showed up for 3 practices. You're skeptical, I get it. But he practiced all 3 days. You get points for that. And he was dominant all 3 days of Senior Bowl practice, because sometimes you see guys show up for day 1, have a day, and they say, all right, I'll see you guys at the Combine. That was not TJ Parker. So I have him going 7th overall to the Commanders. Just so you know, he's 6'3.5", 263, 33 and a 1/4 inch arms. What do you think of him going this high? Went back and watched him and I fell in love.
Well, the thing is, I mean, obviously we know that the Commanders, they need edge rush help. right? So it's going to be some level of whether it's TJ Park, and I'm looking at the list, or David Bailey or Keldrick Falk. It's going to be some blend of that. But again, we're talking about the system. And so I'll be interested to see how much the Dan Quinn system evolves with their new defensive coordinator, if it even evolves. And so a player like TJ Parker, he has the size, he has the physical tools. One of my comps for him was Preston Smith, that was out of Mississippi State, out of college, played a long time in Green Bay. Just a big physical guy that's speed to power, that can set the edge, that's athletic enough to spot drop for you in coverage. And so I think TJ Parker can do all those things.
Yeah, and he got off to a slowish start. I thought he and Peter Woods actually had a pretty good season, just comparatively not as great. He had 4 sacks in that last game against South Carolina against Lenore Sellers. And that ain't like sacking me out there. That's sacking a grown man who could be a linebacker in a different life. So I thought he finished strong, had a good Senior Bowl. So we'll see how this shakes out. But, you rather finish strong than start strong and flame out. Next up, pick 8, the New Orleans Saints. This feels like not a long conversation unless you want someone else to go here. Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, explosive home run hitter. I think we are seeing him, no matter how much people want to disagree with it, we are seeing the resurgence of the running back position and people putting a proper value on the running back position. I think he's head and shoulders above in terms of being the number one running back, and then the next guy being significantly below. But for Tyler Shuck to take the next step, you need another explosive playmaker. I know Alvin Kamara wants to be back with the Saints. And again, you have to lean on the Saints draft history. They always draft a year ahead of a need. And so there was a world back in the day where they had a Mark Ingram and they had Alvin Kamara there together. They've always had 2 guys there together. So I love this pick for him. I think he's a home run hitter and would be a good fit in New Orleans.
Another young man that had a standout week in Mobile after we didn't see a lot of him because of the foot injury. We talked about him a lot over the summer, and Rand shaking his head because this is a former Gator. There he is.
I got to get it right.
Shoulder. Yeah. Y'all didn't major in math at Florida, but y'all majored in football and sticking together. Caleb Banks, just because you pointed the wrong helmet there.
You know what?
You're still smarter than me. What you got?
I hate you even more. But this is a guy, and first of all, I want to say this, man. Shout out to all the scouts around the league and the GMs that we know watch the show and look to get some information from here. And this young man, I got a text from a scout a couple shows ago, was like, man, you really like this guy like that. And I'm like, you have to go back and watch 2024 and then watch, the little bit that you get to see in 2025. Again, he is supremely talented. He does have top 10, top 15 talent. This is a person, I keep saying, and I will keep saying it, where the spring is very, very, very important for him. He's got a lot of questions to answer. I think it started at the Senior Bowl, him dominating the Senior Bowl. Now you just have to figure out the person. But, man, this kid is tons of talent, 6'6", 330 pounds, 35-inch arms. And you think a 2-gap-in run defender, no, this guy can attack edges. He can penetrate gaps. He can be disruptive in the backfield. He just has to put it all together. There have been some guys that have gone in this range in terms of his position, or in the top 15, let's just say, that Caleb Banks is more talented than and has more upside than. And I just, again, the spring is very, very, very important for him. But, man, he is off to the right start.
Yeah, you got ahead of me there. I had him going to the Kansas City Chiefs. I would imagine you like that fit just because Chris Jones is not going to play for another 10 years. And even if they're together for 1 or 2 years, no one's going to be angry about that.
No, I mean, who better to learn from than Chris Jones? And I know Chris Jones, he's earned the right to do it just because of how dominant he is. Just in terms of picking his spots. The best thing about pairing these two together is the versatility of Chris Jones, right? Because you could put those two to create those matchups against those guards. You could put Chris Jones and Caleb Banks inside, or you could put Chris Jones on the edge with George Karlaftis on the other side and be able to have Caleb Banks in the middle. It could be really, really a good situation for the Chiefs. And it gives the Chiefs a potential dominant guy in the interior when Chris Jones does indeed move on.
Yeah, we talked about Ruben Bain Jr. and Cassius Howell at Texas A&M and some other guys who have a physical shortcoming based on NFL standards, short arms, whatever. There are no such concerns. Like Caleb is literally the guy you build in the lab, and then you push him off the bus first, and then he goes out there and dominates for 4 quarters. Just got to stay healthy, and I think 3 weeks of practice was a great start. All right, let's go through the next 3 picks here, and I want to get your thoughts on a couple things, and I'll ask our YouTube viewers and listeners the same question. At number 10, I had the Cincinnati Bengals taking edge rusher David Bailey. At number 11, I had the Dolphins taking Peter Woods out of Clemson, teammates of TJ Parker, of course. And then finally at number 12, the Cowboys stumbled their way into Caleb Downs' safety at Ohio State. So I asked this question to Bengals fans, and then I'll get you to follow up, Rand. At number 10, do you want Bailey, Woods, or Downs? Because these are great problems to have when you're a team that has struggled defensively the last few years to get all the guys on the field and operating in the same direction. And then, Rand, I'll ask you that same question. Of those 3 available, who are you taking to fix the Cincinnati Bengals promptly in 2026?
Well, I think for me it would have to be Peter Woods. Give me the interior disruptor, a guy that can. The quarterbacks will tell you the one place where they hate quick disruption is up the middle in the A gap, and he has the ability to do that. He's versatile in terms of being able to align all across the defensive front. I do like David Bailey as well, and everyone I think who watches and listens to our show knows my affinity for Caleb Downs, but we're talking positional value here. And I think getting a Peter Woods here at 10. That's why when I saw this, I was shocked that you actually had put Caleb Banks above Peter Woods at the number 1. Peter Woods is still my number 1 interior defensive tackle, and I think Caleb Banks, depending on who I watched last, he's number 2 or number 3.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. And also, again, it's recency bias. You see these guys at the Senior Bowl. We haven't seen Peter work out since the December, late November, his last game for Clemson. So at the end of the day, they're going to be in the same bucket. It's just what you're looking for as an NFL team. And health is going to play a role as well. All right, Bengals fans, let me know if you prefer Woods, or are you okay with David Bailey? You want Caleb Downs, because those are different players playing different positions and affect your defense differently, of course. All right, let's take another quick break here when we come back. The Rams are going to be on the clock with the first of their 2 first-round picks. So they're taking a quarterback. We'll find out right after this. All right, Rand, we're up to pick 13, where the Los Angeles Rams currently find themselves by way of the Falcons trade last year. And no quarterback here. There's still Ty Simpson on the board. We'll see where he ends up going. I had him going with Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU, transfer from Virginia Tech. We talked about him in August, and every month thereafter, nothing's changed. We'll see if he ends up being cornerback 1, but he's going to be one of the first cornerbacks off the board because of the physicality with which he plays. Rams need corners. What do you think of this?
No, I love this pick for the Rams, and they've done a hell of a job of drafting, like quietly. They've done a really good job. And so I love this pick for them, but I love this pick for them. Obviously, we know they need corners, and Mansour Delaney is a corner with size. But if you look at the guys that they've had to rely on the perimeter, the Emmanuel Forbes, the Akello Witherspoon, both of these guys are tall, they're long, they're athletic, but the one thing that they are missing from being on the edge is that physical nature, coming up, making tackles, and this is where Mansour Delaney separates himself. If you're playing in that division, right, which now features Mike LaFleur as the head coach, which runs the same offensive system as Sean McVay, as Kyle Shanahan, as Clint Kubiak did in Seattle. The number one thing that they're going to figure out is, can your corners tackle? Right? Because when we think about edge setters, we're typically thinking about, guys we talked about, Ruben Bain and TJ Parker and David Bailey, those type of guys. But what those offensive systems will force your corners to have to be the edge setters and force them to come up and have to tackle. And the one thing we know about Mansour Delaney is that he's not afraid to come put his face on you and tackle you.
Yeah, and he's not going to probably test as well as some of these insanely athletic cornerbacks. But again, we say all the time, just don't overthink it. Watch the tape, and if he's balling out, he's probably going to ball out at the next level. Pick 14. I'm interested in what you think about this guy because you've liked him more than I have throughout the process. And I texted you last week. And I said I went back and watched some more end of the season stuff for Cade McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. And he's not, I don't know what comes after country song, but he's stronger than that. And you've been telling me this, and I've been sort of stubborn. He is going to get better as a pass rusher. I was talking to Ethan Onyama, the guard for Ohio State, just about practicing against Cade McDonald, and he said that was one of the worst experiences of his life because it's insane how strong this young man is. How do you like this fit for the Ravens in particular?
You are coming around, Ryan. You are coming around. It took a little while, but you're coming around. Yep. After watching him and knowing all of the attributes in which you say that he has and how he plays, doesn't he feel like a Baltimore Raven?
Yep.
Like he just feels like the physical beat you up. It's just going to be two heavyweights and we're going to battle it out. And he just feels like a Baltimore Raven in his style of play. I talked about it earlier. Peter Woods is still my number one defensive tackle. I actually have Caden McDonald number two. And again, for me, I do think Caleb Banks is more talented. Caleb Banks has to continue to prove to me that all the injury stuff is behind him, and we got to find out where the inconsistency comes from. But yes, Caden McDonald just feels like a Baltimore Raven pick.
And 15 is not too high for him in your mind, top 15?
No, I don't think so, particularly with this class. And again, it's all about feel. It's all about feel and what you think you're going to be able to get from them. Baltimore Ravens does have other holes, but they value defensive front, especially with their new head coach Jesse Minter and what they've been able to do and build out in Charger land. So I like the fit here.
Yeah, I came around. It took me a while. I should have listened to you earlier. I'm like when you tell your kids, I told you what was going to happen, and you didn't believe me. I should have believed you. All right, next.
Nah, it's par for the course for me in my life, though. I tell you stuff early. Most don't come around, so I give you credit.
There you go. When my kids were younger, like when they were 2 and 3, I used to say I spend 95% of my day repeating myself, and the other 5% of my day cleaning up poop. So at least we've graduated a little bit from that, but you do have to repeat yourself a lot to me. All right, I'm going to do pick 15 and pick 16 together. I want to get your thoughts on Keldrick Faulk, the Auburn edge, going to Tampa Bay, but I'm more interested in your thoughts at pick 16, the Jets with their second first-round pick, rolling the dice on Ty Simpson, because we know about Dante Moore. We've talked about him returning to school, and the Jets are in a bad way. Aaron Glenn has removed everyone under the org chart as assistant coach, so they got to fix that part of it. So tell me a little bit about Keldrick Faulk to Tampa, if you're okay with that, and then of course Ty to the Jets and them trying to save the guys in the Big Apple there.
I think the Keldrick Faulk pick is a solid pick, and I understand why you would go with an edge guy there because they do need an edge. But to me, they need, and I want to make sure I say this properly and it's understood. They need a pass rusher. Right. The one thing that when I first turned on Keldrick Faulk going back to 2024, I just automatically came into it thinking I was going to see this high-end dominant pass rusher. And he is a solid pass rusher, but I think the one part of his game that stands out, that jumps off the tape to me, is his ability to play the run. Not only set the edge, but he just has a natural instinct and feel to slip blocks, to backdoor blocks, and fall into making plays behind the line of scrimmage and down the line of scrimmage. And so for me, I don't know that he truly answers the need just because of his style of play for what the Bucs need there. But I do understand finding someone there. Now, moving on to Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson, I think he's really talented, but I think there are still more questions that need to be answered just in terms of his ability to push the ball down the field, right? Yes, and that's what we need to see. This offense has to open up. This offense has to be able to score points, obviously. But here's the big question for the Jets. and I know Rick's probably listening. So Rick, here's our question. With the amount of picks that they have moving forward, right? Are you solidified in that where if you're not blown away by Ty Simpson, can you kick the can down the road another year? That's the number one question. And then, but it also leads to, okay, so who is going to be the next guy? And that's probably most likely going to have to come in free agency in terms of who you get there. And I listen, I know those guys at the Jets, and there's a ton of turnover right now, like you mentioned, with their coaching staff, and they're trying to do the right things. Jets fans, I promise you, they're not just making it up as they go. They have a plan. They have a vision. It's not easy to sit through these dark days. And I'm just telling you, as a former GM, we wear it heavily. I remember reaching out to Brad Holmes during the 2024 season. I'm like, how the hell did you get through those early years in Detroit? Right? Because it's hard, man. It's hard. It takes a toll on you. But Jets fans, and look, y'all been going through this for 20 years. I get it. But just try to have some faith, man. Just try to have some faith. But let us know in the comments if you guys are 100% on board with Ty Simpson, or would you rather wait and kick the can down the road another year because you got multiple first-round picks next year as well, and would you rather roll the dice and package those and go up and get one of those top guys next year?
The name that shall not be mentioned. We'll be mentioning a lot more once this draft ends. At pick 17 and pick 18, I had the Lions. You mentioned Brad Holmes. I had them taking a corner. They have needs there. Everyone and their brother were hurt in that defense last season. They still held it together with Kelvin Shepard. Brandon Cece, the cornerback out of South Carolina. We've talked about him quite a bit over the fall 2025 season. And of course, at pick 18, Jermod McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee. I have him going to the Minnesota Vikings. Did not play this year because of an ACL. Didn't get a chance to see him. So you talked about Caleb Banks' pre-draft process being so incredibly important. It's going to be even more important for Jermod just because he hasn't played ball since 2024. Could have been cornerback one. He still may be if we had seen a little bit of him last season. Did not get that, but his story is just beginning. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. All right, let's take another quick break here when we come back. What's next? What's the next pick here? We got the Carolina Panthers are on the clock. So let's see what they do.
Yeah, you talk about my math skills.
You were waiting for that one. So let's see what the Carolina Panthers do. They don't need a quarterback, but they need some other things on offense. We'll see if they do that. We'll talk about that right after this. All right, Rand, double check. The Carolina Panthers are, in fact, on the clock. I was a little confused there going into the break, so thank you for helping me with that. And what do you think about this? Number one, does Caden Proctor last until pick 19? And number two, how do you like his fit in Carolina? Maybe he plays outside, maybe inside early. But I have Caden Proctor, the left tackle out of Alabama, last until pick 19, headed to Charlotte.
I'm looking at these teams that are all above him. And I mean, I could see him lasting here. But for me, he's only played left tackle, right? Which is the concern for me. That is a tough switch. And I'm sure as he's training, he's working both sides in terms of moving his feet. But you're asking him make a wholesale change. We did that with J.C. Latham, J.C.'s rookie year, our 2024 first-round pick, where he was moved over to left tackle at the start of his career. And he was kind of up and down because he had to learn new techniques, a new way of punching. And it's not as easy as people think, right? It's not as easy as people think. Now, to me, that's going to be the big question, is how do the Panthers value him? Honestly, a guy that we see at the next pick that you have here, I could see them taking him, especially with the GM Dan Morgan's background. I could see him being a better fit for them at 19.
All right, let's talk about that pick 20. Dallas Cowboys, their second pick via Green Bay in the Michael Parsons trade. Just to refresh here, Dallas took Caleb Downs earlier with their first round pick in the top 10, and they're going to pair him. And these two young men can drive down together from Columbus. Sonny Styles, a linebacker out of Ohio State, and you mentioned maybe he could go even earlier than this. And then depending on who you ask, there's certainly some love for Sonny Styles higher than 20. How do you like the idea of revamping this defense in Dallas with Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs?
I mean, you talk about these are first world issues. To walk away from a draft with Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles, like you couldn't ask. I mean, Will McClay couldn't draw it up any better. Right. Just to have two versatile defenders that are just made of the right stuff. As much as we talk about these guys' physical ability and physical talent, one of the big things that you walk away from is making sure you have the right person, that they're made of the right stuff. And so we know walking away, there probably won't be two cleaner players in terms of their off the field stuff than Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs for the Cowboys. So if you're the Cowboys and you walk away, your day one picks with Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles, I mean, you've hit another home run. Again, the Dallas Cowboys don't have an issue drafting. They really don't. They have drafted extremely well. Their problem has always been the retention part of those draft picks and being able to get them under contract.
All right, let's talk about my Pittsburgh Steelers here. This is the second wide receiver off the board. Not necessarily my wide receiver too, but I think he fits better in Pittsburgh, given DK Metcalf. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. Mike McCarthy is the new head coach. Will be calling plays. Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. His brother obviously plays in the NBA. I know you like Jordan a little bit more than I do. How do you like that fit in Pittsburgh, where they haven't had a number two since they got rid of Deontay Johnson a few years ago?
Yeah, I like this fit for them. I like the size. I like the physical nature, especially playing in the AFC North and some of those corners that will get in your face and play the bump and run. But what I like the most about him being able to play opposite of DK is the fact that he will be the route runner of the two, right? He has a bigger route tree than DK. Obviously, DK is a cyborg. He is a transformer on the field. He's a big man that is explosive, that can run the vertical routes, but his route tree is limited in terms of what you can ask him to do. But a player like Jordan Tyson can run the full complement of the route tree. He has hands and he has run after the catch ability. So you have DK stretching the field vertically, and then you have Jordan Tyson working those short to intermediate areas, and he will be sneaky fast and run faster than I think a little people will think. And so he also has that element, which I think will be a good compliment to DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I'm interested in what Steelers fans think. So let us know if you're okay with Jordan Tyson here. I would imagine you want a wide receiver. I also imagine you want a time machine and go back in time and quit billing about Mike Tomlin because you guys weren't happy about the Mike McCarthy hire. But I don't think that's possible. So let me know what you think about that, or if you want another player entirely at pick 21. All right, I'll give you a couple names here because they play along the offensive line. At pick 22, I had Vega Ione, the guard out of Penn State, going to the Chargers. That feels like a layup given the head coach and the protecting your young quarterback. And then at pick 23, this might be a reach. We'll see as we get through the draft process. But you and I have talked about Max Iannaccio, the right tackle out of Arizona State, has not played a ton of ball. We talked about him in our under-the-radar guys, less so now after a good season and a really good Senior Bowl. I had him going to the Philadelphia Eagles as a Lane Johnson replacement in waiting. Doesn't have to play next year if Lane comes back, of course. And they have a great track record of developing these guys. What do you think about these two picks in terms of their fit for their respective teams that had them going to?
Well, I love the Vega pick. I think that just screams Harbaugh, right? That screams Harbaugh. And quietly, with Mike McDaniel going there as the offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel wants bigger, sturdier guards that are athletic enough to run some of those outside zone concepts, which I think Vega is very capable of doing. So you don't have to have necessarily the small guard. I think 23 is a little bit high for Max Iannaccio at this point. I do like the fit with him in Philly, but this could be a situation where we see Philly and Howie Roseman trade back, pick up more picks, and probably still take a player that they could develop that they don't have to necessarily rush out there year one. I just don't know that they would do it at 23.
Yeah, and that's right. Howie has been known to trade down as well. And we'll see how Max sort of how he ends up in the pecking order here. We talked about him before, like I said, a raw player, but a high upside player as well. Picks 24 and 25, and I'll read them both to you, but I want your thoughts on pick 24 because I'm sure Browns fans will have some comments on that. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, have him going to Cleveland with their second first-round pick, which means that they got Spencer Fano, the right tackle out of Utah, at 6, and they circle back and get tight end Kenyon Sadiq here. At pick 26, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety out of Toledo, have him going to the Bears. They have needs in the secondary. But wide receivers are still on the board. I had them going with Kenyon Sadiq in Cleveland. They have huge wide receiver needs. His versatility is why I went in that direction as opposed to just strictly an X or Z wide receiver.
Yeah, I think they would go wide receiver here.
Okay.
They were able to strike gold with their tight end that they took. I'm drawing a blank. I'm having
Harold Fannin Jr.
Moment. Yeah, Harold Fannin Jr. And I know he suffered an injury to end the season, but I just think this is more. I'll say it this way: I think they have a bigger need than tight end. At pick 24, and with some of these wide receivers that are available, they are in desperate need of a number 2 wide receiver or just a complete rehaul of the wide receiver position as a whole. And as talented that I think Kenyon Sadiq is, he just didn't have the impactful season that I thought he would, being the featured, coming into the season, potentially being the featured guy. I just watching this Oregon tape, as much as I've studied Dante Moore and even Kenyon Sadiq, I walked away liking the other tight end. That the other guy was kept catching my eye. And so Kenyon Sadiq, he had good games, but he never took over and dominated. So that's why I feel like right here at 24, particularly for the Browns, they have a bigger need at receiver, and I have some of the receivers that we'll talk about later ranked higher than Kenyon Sadiq.
All right, Browns fans, I'm guessing you agree, so let us know about that. David Njoku's contract's up. We'll see if they bring him back. In the meantime, let's take one more break here. We'll wrap this thing up. Bills are on the clock. I mean, they got to take a wide receiver, right? Let's find out right after this break what they do. All right, Rand, the final 7 picks here. I joke/tease that the Bills have to take a wide receiver here at pick 26. I'll give you a name, and you tell me, is this too close to Khalil Shakir? Do you need an X to replace Keon Coleman if you're Joe Brady and Brandon Beane? I had him going with Texas A&M's Casey Concepcion. Gives you some return skills as well. I don't think you can have enough Khalil Shakirs if that's your argument. So put him out there, let him make plays. He will get open, which is something the bigger receivers struggle with in Buffalo. What do you think about this pick?
So when you say replace Keon Coleman, are you killing Keon Coleman?
I'm just sort of repeating. I'm stuttering here. I'm repeating the Terry Pagula conversation that Brandon Beane, his face turned, a color of gray that he didn't want to return. Look, Keon's in year 3. You bring Keon back, but the knock against Keon was that he struggled to get open, and I think that's a fair knock. So do you want to go with a Denzel Boston here, who's a bigger receiver, or do you want to go with someone who's more in the mold of Khalil Shakir, who's going to get open on those short and intermediate routes?
No, I think if you're looking at it properly, I think a Denzel Boston would be a good fit here, and look, I know that's your guy and you've been pounding the table for him. I just like his fit here a little bit more than Casey Concepcion because, again, you're giving Josh Allen a bigger target, a bigger physical target here. And so I like that fit. I mean, they have to go wide receiver. I think we would have some type of insurrection going on in Orchard Park if they pass on a wide receiver here at this pick. And there's still a lot of good wide receivers that are available that are worthy of a pick at this spot. But I just think if you're the Bills, you need that bigger, more physical, and that's taking nothing from Casey Concepcion because he is an absolute playmaker. But if you have both he and Khalil Shakir in this same spot, it's only so many gadget type concepts that Joe Brady's going to have to be able to come up with. If you go back to Joe Brady all the way back to the LSU days, he likes those bigger receivers that give the quarterback a bigger target to throw to.
That's a good call as well. Yeah, he was living right in a previous life when you have Joe Burrow, you have Justin Jefferson, You have Jamar Chase. Yeah, it wasn't Malik. And then you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, you're doing okay for yourself. And now, of course, Joe Brady, 6 or 7 years later, is the head coach of the Bills. You mentioned Denzel Boston. Tell me what you think about this fit, because you worked with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco for a number of years. I had Denzel Boston going there. They do have other needs, and given how the draft shook out ahead of them, and with guys like Juwan Jennings' contract going to be up soon, and they don't have a D wide receiver room right now. Does Denzel Boston feel like a Kyle Shanahan quotation marks type of receiver?
Yeah, because the Denzel would actually come into this offense and he would be the Z wide receiver, a bigger physical receiver that can play over the middle. Believe it or not, in this offense, the Z wide receiver is probably in the infancy of the offense, I'll say. The Z wide receiver would be the guy that you would target 100+ times throughout the year, a guy that you can give the ball over the middle that has run after the catch skills. We know Denzel Boston has a background as a punt returner, being able to punt, being able to receive those punts and find daylight. But you also have a Ricky Pearsall, if you're with the 49ers, who's the X, a guy that can stretch the field, can run a lot of those routes that Kyle likes to run in that system. So I do see a Denzel Boston fit. We did a mock draft months ago, and this is where I mocked Elijah Surratt going, in the late first round to the 49ers. Again, Elijah Surratt, there's a fit for him there. Won't be the lateral separator, the guy that cuts outside of his frame, but he's a guy that could do a lot of what Juwan Jennings has been able to do, but also give you Z flex as well.
All right, pick 28, Lee Hunter, defensive lineman out of Texas Tech, part of that fantastic Texas Tech defense in 2025. Have him going to the Houston Texans. He measured in at under 6'1", but he is an absolute bulldog. I like him a little bit more in the second round, but sometimes guys get pushed up because of needs. The Texans have a history of rolling with guys on the interior who aren't 6'5" and 340 pounds. And Lee Hunter had a great season, a really good week at the Senior Bowl. I'm going 28. And at 29, I'll mention quickly Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC, going to the Rams. So I'll ask you this, Rand. I had the Rams getting Mansur Delane with their first round pick, the cornerback at LSU, and then circling back and getting a slot receiver in Mekhi Lemon, who can also play outside if you want him to give some help to Puka Nacua there. Devontae Adams, I think, has one more year left on his deal, but there's not a lot after those guys. Are you okay with a wide receiver here for LA?
Yeah, I think LA will be in a spot where they can go best player available. And one thing that they value are good football players. And their board is going to look a little bit different than most. And I mean, you talk about, Sean McVay and Les Snead, what they've been able to do in terms of building a team, so much so that it was announced earlier that they've both received multi-year contract extensions. So, shout out to Sean and a friend of the show, Les Snead, in being able to secure their futures. But Mekhi Lemon is a good football player and a person that fits in the Sean McVay system. Now, I will say this, though. The one thing that I feel like they are missing at the wide receiver position is a vertical field stretcher. Yeah. And so for me would a guy like, and again, I'm just throwing names out there, would a guy like Chris Brazzell fit here at 29, a taller, longer vertical field stretcher with ball skills?
Yep, and we'll get into that over the next 80 days, of course. Pick 30, C.J. Allen from Georgia, the linebacker, going to the Broncos. Pick 31, guy Rand mentioned under the radar guys a few weeks ago, Monroe Freeling, the tackle from Georgia, have him going to the Patriots. And then pick 32, wrapping up the first round, Avion Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. His brother, of course, is A.J., going to the Seattle Seahawks. The draft order will officially be set after the Super Bowl. I'll ask you for a one-liner on Monroe Freeling here. You okay with him developmentally going to the Patriots and Mike Vrabel?
Yeah, absolutely. He'll have to kick over to the right side because, they drafted their left tackle, but he'll be a good replacement for Morgan Moses.
All right, that's it for us here with the first pick. Check it out wherever you get your podcast, game that QR code, and we will see you guys in the next one.